Welcome back, Craig here with How to Make Words Your Superpower, and today we're talking again about how to ask for a raise if you're an underpaid woman. Now, of course, this happens to men and women, and I already made part 1 where we talked about how to set up the conversation and state the problem to your boss without placing blame or making them defensive. Today we're going to talk about how to actually dig into the request and how to set an anchor so your expectations are really clear. Now, if you remember, this question came from my friend Jean, who had found out she'd been underpaid for a few years, and she's a lawyer. And last time we talked about, setting up the situation discussion with her boss and then actually stating the problem without placing blame. She had a review cycle coming up, and so she was afraid her boss was just going to push this off to the review, and she didn't want that to happen. So I told Jean to say something like, look, I wanted to talk about this before we got into our annual review because I want to make sure we're on the same page. Now, this is just a really easy way to say, hey, I need to make sure that we have shared reality about what the problem is here before we get into any formal process. And I think this is really important to not wait. If you're asking for a raise, it's very tempting, and often bosses will say, hey, well, we're going to the review cycle, we'll talk about it then. It's really important, even if you're not going to establish numbers, have the conversation before things get put on paper, because as soon as they get put on paper, there are probably other people involved in departments and budgets and that sort of thing, and it gets much more locked down. You want to have the conversation as soon as you can once you realize, okay, this is something that needs to happen. Then Jean and I talked about caretaking statements, and I talk a lot about caretaking statements on this channel. I will link to another video that I did about how to ask for things and how to use caretaking statements, but that is a term I have created about how to actually modulate the emotional temperature of the conversation. So a caretaking statement that is really good is something that is specific and personal to the person and reminds them of their relationship with you. So again, when we role played, Jean said something as a caretaking statement of, I really like it here, and then went on. And I stopped her and I was like, that's a very generic statement. I mean, anybody, I was like, I could walk into the office and say, oh, I really like it here. But that's not specific to you and it's not personal to him. And so what I told her is you really need kind of like an anecdote. And I was like, are there any times that you really that remind you of why you like your boss? And Jean told me, yeah, actually there was one time earlier this year where I had this personal problem with somebody in the office, and my boss actually really helped and stepped in and helped me address it. And so I said, you just need a one-sentence version of that story that reminds him of how much you appreciate him for situations like that. So your caretaking statement, instead of something like, I really like it here, could be something that is like, I love the fact that we have a relationship where you don't micromanage me, but when I have a problem, I can ask you, and I feel like you do a great job of stepping in and giving me the help that I need. And I really felt that this year when we had that situation, and you mentioned it for a second. So the caretaking statements are, you can add them anywhere in the conversation where you feel like they're necessary, but they're good to have a few of these kind of small little anecdotes in your back pocket, because it'll help you make stronger requests and know that you can still preserve the relationship. And again, I have a video completely on this, and I'll link to it here. Now, we're gonna go into the meat of this, which is how do you ask for more money without seeming greedy? So what I told Jean to say is give him a caretaking statement, something that is genuine about why you like it there, and then say, I'm investing in my future here, but I need to feel like I'm still making a good financial decision by being here. That last point is really key, because I'm putting the blame not on, hey, I want more money or I want as much money as I can have, instead on the idea that I need to make a good financial decision. And a good financial decision is what we call a commonplace, because everybody can agree to it. And then I talked to Jean a little bit about what she could possibly make and the greatest in the best of situations in another firm. And I told her she should say something, followed up with something like, I know by looking at the market that if I went to a similar firm, I could probably get paid somewhere around 165 because I have a decade of experience. And if I went to a really big law firm, I would be well over 200K. What I'm doing with that last statement is setting an anchor. If I'm being underpaid by my boss and my company, I don't want them to come at me with another number, because they have a history already of underpaying me. I want to establish a much higher range and establish my expectation instead of waiting for them to come with a number. And then finally, with the request, I want to assure them that they can win. I told Jean, say something like, I absolutely don't want to leave or go anywhere else. I'm really happy here, but I just want to make sure that I'm making the right decision. And then again, that's, hey, I'm here, I'm with you, I like being here, but I have this nagging thing where I have to make good financial decisions, and how can we address that problem? That's it for part 2. Remember, this internal conflict that you're kind of understating here is really important. You are with them, you want to state the job, but there's this nagging thing, this commonplace of having to make good financial decisions, which is kind of weighing on you. And that is where you place the blame. That's it for part 2. So let me know what's bothering you. What is these problems that are coming? Oh, God darn it. The next part is going to be on how to handle objections, all the other things that come up, and how to do it gracefully. There are so many parts to this. I hope you're enjoying this series. If you are, hit the like button and hit me up in the comment section. Let me know what types of problems and questions are coming up, because I'm taking that and making new videos off of it. I'm coming out with a new one each and every week, so I hope you'll subscribe to my channel. I will see you guys in the next video.